Hi everybody, welcome to English with Missing. This is the very first video of my revision series. In each of these videos, I'm going to take you through every chapter of literature in about 10 to 12 minutes. Each video will have a short and easy to understand summary, a few of different types of questions, vocabulary words, and tips on how to attempt the questions to the best of your ability. So without wasting any more time, let's jump right into it. We will begin with the first chapter of the book First Flight, A Letter to God by G.L. Fuentes. Simple summary points. The story is set in Mexico and is about a Mexican farmer's faith in God. The farmer named Lencho lived on top of a low hill with his wife and sons. Lencho's faith in God was unmoving. So when I say unmoving, I mean that his faith in God could not be shaken. He grew corn in his fields. His corn crop grew well, but it needed a little rain. He knew it would rain and he would have a good harvest that year. Harvest means crop. It started raining at dinner time. Lencho imagined the raindrops as coins falling from the sky. So why did he think of the raindrops as coins? That was because that very rain would give him a good harvest, and good harvest meant that he would make good money that year. However, very soon the rain turned into hail and storm, so the weather became really bad and rough, and that was not a great weather for his fields or his crop. Lencho hoped for it to pass soon. Sadly, the hail rained for an hour and destroyed Lencho's entire crop. This made Lencho very sad as there was nothing to harvest. He realized that his family would go hungry that year. His only hope was God. The next Sunday morning, he wrote a letter to God. And why do you think he wrote a letter to God? That was because he had so much faith in God that he realized that it was only God who could help him in his time of need. In his letter, he asked God to send him 100 pesos. Pesos is Mexican currency. Remember, he's from Mexico. He only asked for what he needed, no more. And that's because he wasn't a greedy man. He went to the post office to post his letter and addressed it to God. So on the envelope, he wrote to God. At the post office, the postmaster read his letter because of the missing address. Now the postmaster did not know where to send the letter because the address on the envelope said to God. And that was the reason why the postmaster had no choice but to open up the letter and read it. After reading the letter, the postmaster was moved and wanted to help. By moved, I mean that he felt sympathy for Lencho. The postmaster did not want to shake Lencho's faith in God. He collected money from his office people and donated some from his side too. However, the postmaster could only collect 70 pesos. So he could not collect 100, but he collected 70 and he thought it was a good idea to send him at least 70. That would be some help, right? He decided to send the amount he had collected and signed the letter with the word God. So he did send it as if God was sending the money to Lencho because he did not want Lencho to think somebody else helped him. He wanted him to continue to have strong faith in God. Lencho got the letter and opened it to check the money God had sent. He was angry to see that it was not the amount he had asked for. Now he was definitely not angry with God because he was very sure that God would send him the exact amount that he had asked for, because God had no reason to send him less money. So he wrote back to God immediately saying that some money out of the 100 pesos he had sent was stolen by the post office employees. And that's the irony of the story. The post office employees wanted to help Lencho to make sure that his faith in God remained strong. So they donated money out of a good intention. But what did they get in return? They were called thieves. They were thought of by Lencho as thieves because Lencho trusted God more than human beings. Theme or message of the story. Now this specific story has 3 parts or 3 things that you must remember as its message. The first one being faith. The story, A Letter to God, is about Lencho's unshakable faith in God. And that's a very important aspect of this story. The second one is humanity. The postmaster and his colleagues represent kindness and humanity. And the third one is irony. The irony is that Lencho thinks that the post office employees are thieves and their kindness goes completely unacknowledged. In the end, Lencho, whose faith in God is firm, fails to trust humanity. So these three things are extremely important and you need to remember them because most of your questions will revolve around the theme. Since this is my very first revision video, I'm going to take you through the types of questions we will be discussing in this video and other revision videos. The first one is extract based questions. So sometimes you have multiple choice questions from the extract. You could also have one or more subjective questions. Sometimes you also get a 2-marker in extracts too. The second type of questions are the theme-based questions. They're usually 3 or 6 markers based on the message of the story, the moral of the story. And the next one is event-based question. This is usually a short answer type question because it is based on what happened in the story, like an incident or a specific event. For example, if the question is what does Lencho do after the storm? So that's an event-based question and not a message-based question. And the last type of question is an open-ended question. By open-ended, I mean a question wherein your opinion is asked, right? Or you're expected to comment on what happens in the story or comment on the actions of different characters. So these are usually 6 markers, but you could also have a 3-marker question of this type. Again, there's a wide variety of open-ended questions and we will try to deal with as many as we can through these videos. We'll be doing one extract in this video, but you can go through another one that I have for you in your own time. At this point, if you would like to pause the video and go through the extract, you could do that too. I'm just going to straight away jump to the question. What was Lencho's only hope? Now the answer to this question is pretty straightforward as it is given in the extract. So it says Lencho thought only of his one hope, the help of God. So it's very clear that the answer is that Lencho's only hope was the help of God, right? Second, why did Lencho believe God would help him? Now if you read the extract carefully, you will notice that it says whose eyes as he had been instructed see everything. So maybe right from childhood Lencho believed that God saw everything and knew about everybody's problems, and that's the reason why he felt that God would help him, right? So basically it brings us back to his strong faith in God. What does this extract reveal about Lencho's character? So what does this tell us about Lencho? What do we understand about Lencho? We understand that he had a lot of faith in God, right? So that's one thing we come to know about his character. And lastly, pick a word from the extract that means in a moral sense. Now, if you know the meaning already, then that's great. And I'm going to tell you that it's conscience. But if you do not know the meaning or if you do not know the word, then what's the best approach? How should you approach a question like this, like a vocabulary question? So I would like you to underline all the words that you find are unfamiliar, whose meanings you do not know or that which are new to you, right? Once you've done that, then screen all of those words one by one and use what we call the method of elimination. Eliminate what you think is not the meaning, and then you will be left with what is the actual meaning. So this is the best approach when you actually do not know the word, right? This is the second extract, and you can pause the video here and go through it in your own time. Moving on, let's go through the important tips that you need to remember when answering extract-based questions. First, answer must be short and to the point, which means that there is no need to write a very long paragraph for an extract-based question. Number 2, use multiple short sentences instead of a one very long sentence in which you're trying to cover many points. Number 3, keep the language simple. There is no need to use words that you find difficult because that will not make your answer clearer. Instead, it will make your answer more complicated and hard to understand. And that's not what we want. Number 4, for a 2-marker, if you get a 2-marker for an extract-based question, always divide the answer in 2 clear points. Whenever you get a 2-marker question, you should have 2-point answer. We'll talk about this in detail later. Next category of questions, theme-based questions. First, how does a letter to God highlight the theme of faith in God? So remember all the 3 aspects we talked about when we were discussing the message of the story. So write all the points that you need to, write everything about the story that you need to, but remember to connect it back to faith in God. Number 2, how does the story bring out the theme of irony? So again, write different aspects of the story, incidents and events, but connect it back to irony. Say what was ironic and why do you think that was ironic, right? Now lastly, what message does the story convey about blind faith? Again, write whatever you need to about the story. You can write the whole story, but do mention what was Lencho's failing. Write about his wonderful characteristic of having strong faith in God, but also write about his failure as a human being to trust other people, to trust humanity and kindness. All right? The next type of questions we have are event-based questions. These are more straightforward and more direct kind of questions, right? You would know the answer straight away when you read the question. How did the postmaster react when he read Lencho's letter? So think about what exactly did he do or say, and that would be your answer. What event led Lencho to write a second letter to God? So what had happened that he needed to write a second letter? So you know exactly what happened when he opened the letter and he became angry, what he saw, what he observed, and then what conclusion did he come up with. The last category of questions are open-ended questions. First, Lencho had complete faith in God, yet he doubted the honesty of post office employees. Comment on how this shows the irony in the story. Again, you will notice that the answer to this question is similar to the answer we discussed in one of the message-based questions, which was also about irony. So it could be same. The answer could be very, very similar. But what you have to remember is how you're going to relate it to the question, how you're going to tailor your answer to suit the question, right? This is also about irony, and we are going to talk about how it was a great characteristic that Lencho had of having strong faith in God, but his one major flaw was that he did not trust people. He had no faith in humanity or kindness. Second, the story portrays both faith and human kindness. Explain with reference to the story. See, now it's not about the irony. It's more about Lencho's faith and postmaster and his colleagues' kindness, right? So we are going to now remove the irony completely from this answer and write about only these 2 aspects. As we approach the end of this video, let's go through the important tips that you need to remember to answer all kinds of questions. So first, if it is a 3-marker question, always divide the answer in 2 clear points. Now sometimes the question will ask for 3 things or 3 parts or 3 points. In all of the other cases, have 2 clear points or 2 clear parts of your answer ready. Number 2, for a 3-marker, quote at least one example from the text. Always write one example, incident or event that happened in the story or poem from the text in your 3-marker question, in your 3-marker answer, not question. For a 6 marker, always divide the answer in 3 clear points. So a 6 marker question should have 3 parts at least. You can even divide in 3 paragraphs if you like. It's not necessary, but that makes for a very impressive answer. Number 4, for a 6 marker, quote at least 2 examples from the text. Now 2 examples if it is a very generic question, like if it is a question where you are not able to bring 3 clear parts, but if you're able to bring in 3 clear parts or 3 clear points, then it's a good idea to write 3 examples, 1 for each point. Okay, and the last point is what I've already said. Try to divide your 6 marker answer in at least 3 paragraphs. It makes for an impressive answer if it is divided in paragraphs. If you write all of it as a one big paragraph, I don't think it's that impressive and it's that easy for the examiner to check or read even. And lastly, let's go through some new words or difficult words in the story. The first one is crest, which means peak, harvest, which means crop, intimately, which means closely, supper, which means dinner, regarded, which means saw, draped, which means covered, plague, which means disease, solitary, which means lonely, conscience, which means inner moral sense, daybreak, which means early morning, heartily, which means full, amiable, which means friendly, correspondence, which means letter writing or more like communicating through letter writing, resolution, which means decision, contentment, which means satisfaction, and crooks, which means thieves. If you found this video useful, do like, share, and subscribe. I'll end with what I always tell my students: there is no substitute for preparation. I'll see you in my next video. Bye bye and take care.